Indigenous elders say the demise of Queensland's path to treaty is still a major disappointment, even though funds earmarked for the process have been redirected to First Nations communities. The Act and the Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry was repealed by the LNP shortly after it took office last year. The first tranche of reallocated money will see almost $20 million used for water and education projects in Cherbourg, Arakoon and Kawanyama. For more on this, I'm joined by Professor Jackie Huggins from the University of Queensland, who is also the inaugural Elder in Residence at the ABC. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Dan. Lovely to be here.
Good to have you along. Tell me, Professor Huggins, what's your reaction to this news today?
My reaction was one of disappointment, I must say. And we had wondered where the $300 million from the Future Fund would be spent and redirected. Now we've got some inclination, but I still think there's a long way to go in terms of really looking at and distributing those funds.
Because we know some of that detail is that $108 million originally allocated, particularly for the Act, will go into the new Closing the Gap project. And I guess this $20 million that we've seen today going to those three communities with a very clear focus around education and water. What do you say to that specifically?
Yes, well, they're just three communities out of a whole raft of communities that need urgent addressing here in Queensland. You know, there are communities still with no infrastructure, basic infrastructure, roads, etc. And, after the severe weather we've had, it's made an impact. But look, I'm sure those three communities would welcome their the funding that they have received from government, which, in the whole scheme of things is very minuscule. I mean, there was a future fund there for $300 million. And, certainly people are asking the question about where is that gone and where is it going to. We have had some answers, but they're very, very small in the major plan of how to bring about justice for our people on these communities and in remotes particularly.
And when we're talking about these projects around water as well as education, there will no doubt be people hearing this news saying, well, why wasn't that already happening? Why has it taken until now for that to be prioritised?
Oh, exactly. And, for decades and years and years, we've been put into the too hard basket. That is, the First Nations peoples, certainly of this state, where we don't have a remarkable history. In fact, our history has been very brutal. If we, really need to do some truth-telling around that, and I know people do want to do that. But look, it's taken years, too hard to fix up things, maybe lowest priority on the ladder. But gee, these are the lives of, human beings, of people like you and me and others. So hopefully there will, become some justice around these issues very soon.
Professor Huggins, do you think that there is a cost to the Crisafulli government's decision to cut this process and to not pursue any sort of truth-telling mechanisms?
Yes, I think there has been a cost. Everyone I speak to in our community is so disappointed and gutted by the decision for the truth-telling process and treaty not to go forward. And, it's been indicative of communities like Stradbroke and Cherbourg to fly the flags and do their own investigations right after the inquiry, in fact, was scrapped. So I think that speaks to the volume of interest, but of necessity and of pride that our people want to tell their stories. They want to be involved in the truth-telling and the treaty processes. But now, kind of 2 days after the referendum, a statement was made that the Path to Treaty Act would be repealed. That takes into account truth-telling and treaty. So there is still a lot of grief, as well as around the referendum, that still lingers with us and that still, holds us captive.
Just finally, Professor Huggins, if you could speak directly to the Premier of Queensland or also the Minister for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnerships, what would you say? Is it too late to reverse decisions or to have some type of a process while also dealing with some of these really focused issues in remote communities?
I would say to both of them, and I've heard you talk personally, Premier and Minister, about how important truth-telling is in this state and for this country. I've heard you directly speak about that. So surely we could have two parallel opportunities running here, like close the gap. That's always very important. But as I said, it probably will take 400 years to work on any parity for our people. So it would be great to have local community truth-telling exercises and consultations within all the communities so that they're able to archive those stories, to tell them, for elders to leave information before they pass on. And, we see too much of that in our communities, of elders passing too soon. They are a library. They are a library of information. And, we need to hear from them and other people. And also we found in our consultations when we're doing this is that non-Aboriginal people really want to tell their stories too, as victims and as perpetrators of what has happened to First Nations peoples in this country. So it's still a wonderful opportunity. I don't think we should give up on requesting that the Premier and the Minister and the government really have another hard look at this and run some local truth-telling groups in communities.
Professor Jackie Huggins from the University of Queensland, and elder in residence at the ABC, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Dan. Been a pleasure.